I was asleep for like 2 hours at 4 a.m. Then wake up.
Oh.
And then like an hour in the middle of the day.
Oh.
Usually the microwave.
Oh, that is very bad. I went into infinity there. I was so scared. I will explain. Okay, I will explain just a little bit about that. So, I am doing a YouTube live right now of class because we have a couple of students who are still not feeling so great. And so I thought it would be really helpful if we did a little YouTube live today. So I want to make sure.
Is it public?
Not yet. Not yet, but no, it's public. It is public. Chrome tab. There we go. Share. Perfect. Okay. Excellent. Okay. So if anybody has Abby Cohote on their phone,
Yeah.
so here's what you're going to need to do. She's going to need to look for me. She's going to need to look for me. So basically, if you look up Amanda Gilchrist on YouTube, you should find username. It's Dr. Gilchrist, and you should be able to find me. So I might have to talk a little bit louder than I normally do, just because, here we go. Let me set up the mic volume and see if that'll work. All right, microphone settings. All right. So tell her to find me that way. So yeah, I don't have anybody following or watching the chat right now, but it is public. So people could watch this if they wanted to. Like, y'all, I am live. You're doing speakerphone? Really?
In case you need to say something important. I don't think she's going to like come up to you swinging. Being like, did you get my text?
All right, let me go close the door. I'm having flashbacks to all the times we went hybrid during the pandemic, except I had a mask covering my face. I even had those ones with the clear window so you could read lips. Hi, everybody. So welcome today. We are talking about different cultural perspectives in health psychology. So the last time that we were here, we were talking about cultural competencies. So what I'd like to do for maybe the next minute or two is I'd like you to find somebody in the class to talk to about your response on those cultural competencies and kind of let me know if see what stood out to you in some of those questions that I asked you and compare your responses to your classmates. So you can go ahead and share that with your classmate, and then we'll report out for those who would like to share. Okay? So talk about those cultural competencies with somebody else right now. Like what stood out to you in some of those questions? Kaylan wasn't here, so make sure that you get them filled in.
Yeah.
Make sure that you fill people in who weren't here, and just let other people know what stood out to you and what was interesting to you. All right, it's 104. We'll come back at 106.
So basically, we have these questions about. Oh, okay. I know these questions talk about like the way we use healthcare. So like one question I remember was like, I trust a man to be my physician, and I put 1, and it was 1 to 5. Oh, you weren't here.
No, I was here. I was just, but I remember now. So
Yeah.
We're good.
And it was like my mom holds the dominant place, or my mom and dad do.
Or like our chores spread evenly amongst both genders in the household, or like any gender in the household. It's not just the mom, just the dad, whoever doing that process. Yeah, so you were ranking them of how you felt.
I did, however, not right. I like my number.
Yeah, also about Chris, is there somewhere we could, are the questions on the slides by chance?
They're not, but they're in your textbook. So if somebody has the textbook, there should be some cultural competency questions for chapter 3 in there. Aliana, do you have them in there? You want me to help you? Yep, you got them. Okay, great.
Chris, do you remember any? Do you have a text?
Yeah, I think at least for me, kind of what I understood from it was even though that we live in the United States, historically it's kind of a very individualistic kind of
I don't like being touched by anyone.
I seem to answer more that I was open to like the community side of those things, and pretty trusting. I think I put like 3 on if I, whether or not like a male position, I
Yeah.
really comfortable with that. I think I put like a 20. There was one where I was like,
Just knowing it, I do like to be touched. I
Yeah.
prepare myself.
Yeah.
So then I'm.
Something along like,
okay.
yeah, like
I
recently,
don't take it.
would you practice with a healer before like a medical professional?
I don't think of it as harder than.
Yeah, I think for that I
I think
could
it's a lot harder to.
I was just more open, I think, than if we were to do this like nationally,
Which is the
then
question,
maybe
but I.
what every other statistic is. Yeah.
All right, we are getting to 106. So does anybody want to share what kind of things stood out to them? Or did I cut people off at a really important moment and you need more time? How about 2 more minutes? Abby, I love that thumbs up. You were just very emphatic about it. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna do guys have a chance. Yeah, what do you think, Grace? What stood out to you?
From what I remember, all that stuff like more like stuff, but like that's just because we're in a Western society. I don't think that's the only one, but I would definitely be open
And here's something I guess we could talk about is that like exactly gender thing in Western societies where it's like we're supposed to be taught like be individual, pull yourself up. But is it gendered in a way that women are supposed to be receptive and understanding and we make money as 3, but maybe inside if like the day comes, you know, you have a male physician, you go, oh, actually, I'm really uncomfortable with this. And I didn't realize that we've been told that,
Equal share of the house.
they know, you know, like.
There is a SNL sketch, I guess it was the before last, where it was like the only way to get men to go to the doctor is to pretend like you're putting them on a podcast.
I saw that.
And I was, cause like,
I saw that
too.
too.
Like men
That was
ages
funny.
25 to 45 don't go to the doctor.
No, they do not.
My father to go to the doctor has been like pulling teeth.
Well, it's part of the reason, it's part of the reason it's been said that marriage really has a lot of benefits for people who are identifying as male because historically, that kind of thing just did not happen. And the idea was that like your wife basically reminds you to go to the doctor. Having said all of that, I've been in a long-term partnership for like minimum 13 years. And I'm like, you know, you should probably go to the eye doctor. You know, you should probably go to like a regular doctor and a GP. And even then it doesn't happen. So grain of salt, but yes, part of the reason that marriage boosts men's longevity is because they actually go to the doctor more. It's part of it. Okay, you get 1 more minute because I cut in.
Sorry, I wanted to give you a chance.
I think that's partly the point.
How do you do this without a WGS?
Oh, I'm sure. Wait, I have this one. She's in the Yep, Dr.
Oh.
Yeah, that's who it's for.
There's nothing
She
that
used to
was
be
taught to
WDS
us.
type professor, but she has like cross testing classes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's she's great.
All right, 1 more minute is over. So what sort of things stood out to all of you as you were discussing cultural competencies? What sort of things stood out for you? Anybody want to share? Yeah.
I found that most of the people in the group that I talked with, at least the ones that shared, the like the doctor question.
Mm-hmm.
And because I put one, I was like, I completely do not want a man being my doctor.
Uh-huh.
Even though I'm not female identifying, I don't trust a man. And
Okay.
I'm closer to male identifying.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think that could be a product of my mom being the breadwinner of the household, for lack of a better term,
Okay.
and being the one the provider.
Mm-hmm. That's totally fine. Something that I mentioned the other day is that my mom is a little bit more traditional in her ways. She is totally awesome now. Like, she's a manager. She has like an MBA and stuff like that. But we had a conversation, and at least for our annual exams, I've always been like, I need to, like, who's going to understand this better than somebody who has gone through it? But my mom's like, oh yeah, I have a man. I'm totally fine with it. He's great. And I'm like, cool, you do you, Mom. So it is going to be different from person to person for sure. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? I thought that was a really good point. Anybody else? Anything interesting that came up for y'all? Yeah, Abby. Jarvis.
Kind of going off of that as well, we had a small conversation about some of us in our group had a more community-minded for, I guess, answers for being in a Western society that is typically pretty individualistic.
Yeah.
And then we had a short discussion on whether or not upbringings and like gendered upbringings maybe had something to do with that.
Okay. Good. Anybody else? Well, if you don't, Carol Ann.
I had just talked about how, even though in my family, we're outwardly, we all support the ideas of not having gendered division of labor, it kind of ends up that way often anyway.
Mm-hmm. And that's true in my house too. Like, I don't like going outside. I am an outside person, but not an outdoors person. I don't want to be where the bugs are. So I don't really do like lawn mowing or tree trimming or anything like that. Like, I grew up in suburbia. But I am definitely the one who cares about the bathroom being clean. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a ring around the tub. We got to fix it. And I am definitely probably the only one in my house who cares. All right. So what you're looking at over here in this figure is Purnell's model of cultural competence. So there are different levels for thinking about things. So there's the community level, which goes beyond just your family. Because one of the things that we know, and there's a lot of data that shows this, the nuclear family, just the way it's devised of 2 parents and like 2.5 kids on average, it does have a tendency of making you a little more isolated from the greater community. It becomes more, how do I protect my family rather than how do I protect and take care of my community? So there's the community level. So there's the global level, of course. There's the community level. There's the family level, and then there's the person level. And then there are different types of approaches to workforce issues, nutrition, how you perceive and process healthcare practitioners, an overview and understanding of your heritage, ecology, spirituality, communication, high-risk behaviors, healthcare practices, pregnancy and child pairing, death rituals, and family roles and organizations. And you are going to vary from other people in those aspects, not just at the personal level, but if we compare your different families, we're going to see some differences there as well. If we compare that to the community, your community can influence these, and your global society will show a lot of variability in these different aspects. So it's really important to be mindful that the things that feel like everyday living to you may not be everyday living for everybody. That things like how we approach health might vary from family to family, from community to community, and from place to place. So different cultures generally have different perspectives on health. A really good example that I use quite a bit that I brought up to my learning and conditioning class, a couple of years ago, I was telling my mom it was kind of chilly and I didn't have time to dry my hair for something. So I went outside with wet hair and it was kind of cold. And my mother goes, "Amanda, you're going to catch a cold. Don't go out with wet hair." And I had to say, "Mom, cold hair and cold weather do not cause colds. Viruses cause colds." And so I think that in particular highlights slightly different cultural perspectives. When my response is viruses cause colds, you can kind of tell I'm somebody who has a very big emphasis on science and scientific understanding of things. My mom is very much, my mom does believe in germ theory and stuff like that, but she also has some of the traditional Appalachian wisdom that she grew up with in her family, which sometimes include things like don't go outside with wet hair, you'll get a cold. And we take for granted a lot of how we view health. And a lot of that, the ways that we view health, depends on our culture. And remember, as we talked about in chapter 1, culture is not just restricted to race and ethnicity. Religion matters as well. So for example, bringing up religion and death rituals, there are some faiths or spiritual practices that say that cremation is bad. On the other hand, other denominations of Christianity, certain other faiths will say that burial is the only thing that can happen. And those burials cannot happen during certain times, or they might have to occur for certain prayers or things like that. So the way that we do things vary depending on things like our age, depending on things like our social class or socioeconomic status, our geography, our religion. It's part of the reason that some of y'all kind of laughed at me that when I said like the standard cure when you were sick with something was saltine crackers, chicken noodle soup, ideally without the noodles, and then like slightly flat ginger ale or Sprite. And if you had chicken pox, you got ice cream at the end. And of course, some of y'all haven't even gotten chicken pox at all because the vaccine was available by the time that you went into school. Some of us missed out on that and now have a higher shingles risk. Grrr.
What is chicken pox?
It is a virus from the zoster family. It has some similarity to herpes, but it's not herpes. It's kind of like measles in that you get these little fluid-filled blisters all over your body, but you itch. You can have scars from them. I didn't get a lot of chickenpox scars because I was one of the last in my family to get it. So I maybe had like 8 pox and that was it. Killed my perfect attendance award in 2nd grade. but it does, some of the virus can stay in your system and remain dormant, and that does make shingles in later adulthood a bigger possibility, which can cause nerve damage. Like it's shingles. You don't want chickenpox because it raises your risk for shingles, like just in general. Okay, so moving on, let's talk about some of the different perspectives related to health and illness. So most of us have grown up with a Western medicine perspective. A Western medicine perspective is, I feel sick. It is probably caused by a virus or a bacteria or some type of inflammation. I will probably take some type of medicine to get rid of it, or at the least mitigate my symptoms. If things are really bad, I go to a doctor, I get treated, and I get cured. That is the idea behind Western medicine. This idea that these things have physical, biological causes, and we can use different types of imaging techniques and medications to figure out what we need. But that is not all there is. Now, some of these perspectives that we are going to be talking about are going to be a little weird. Some of them might be very different, but I encourage you to keep an open mind. Many of you probably have practiced yoga at some point. Now, to be very clear, our yoga is a very westernized version of the yoga asanas that are practiced in Hindu culture. If you've ever meditated, you are technically doing an alternative practice. If you are doing massages or getting acupuncture, has anybody here gotten acupuncture or massages? My couch gives massages. It's so great. All of these are what are known as complementary and alternative therapy. So if you're going to sit here and go, well, Western medicine is real, but complementary and alternative therapy is like snake oil, I'm here to tell you that if you believe that, that means a lot of us are practicing snake oil, which is to say, none of us are. These are supplementary treatments, and that's why we call them complementary and alternative. Now, some of these perspectives are tied to religion and geography. So Western culture has at times had a history of trying to suppress these things. So, for example, your textbook talks a bit about how New Zealand tried to ban tohungas. So tohungas are basically healers in New Zealand, and they are involved in a variety of different things. So tohungas are from the Maori tribe. They basically are involved in a variety of different things. They help raise kids, they help with healing, and it's a spiritual practice as well. And in the early 20th century, the New Zealand Parliament, which was predominantly white and not Maori at the time, basically banned them from practicing. And I would also say that even in countries like India will often use Western medicine techniques, but those will be complemented by healers who may also use some of these complementary practices to assist and aid with the Western medicine. And like I've said, a lot of us do it too. Okay, so we're going to start by talking about Western medicine. I did not pick this specifically because of pills. I am not an anti-medication person, just so we are clear, but Western medicine does have a huge emphasis on biological treatments and biological causes. So, Western medicine is also known as modern medicine. Maybe we don't call it that there's a little bit of an implication of superiority there and implying that other practices are archaic. So maybe we don't call it modern medicine, but sometimes you will hear it referred to that. Another term for it is allopathy. And this is one of the most prevalent forms of healthcare. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the different major hallmarks of Western medicine. So there is the use of technology to diagnose and treat illnesses. So many of you have gone to the hospital. Maybe you've gotten an EKG that tested the electrical activity of your heart. People have checked your pulse. People have checked your blood pressure. You've done different types of diagnostic tests, things like pap smears, things like once you get to a certain age, you get mammograms, which are other imaging techniques, MRI, fMRI, different things like that. But the goal is to use this technology not only to diagnose, but also to treat. That technology for treatment also comes in the form of things like vaccinations, medications, and different types of drugs. Now, one of the things that is important to note with this, treatment is often designed to oppose the effects of the disease. So for example, if you have a fever, what are you generally going to do? Wait it out is an acceptable answer, but there are other answers out there. So if you have a fever, what are you going to do? You're going to take medicine, and what is the medicine designed to do? Get rid of the fever or temporarily dull the fever. Now, I know that some people have heard that you shouldn't take the medication because the fever is the sign that your body is fighting a foreign invader like a virus. But there's not really a lot of data that shows that taking medication to help with your comfort makes the virus or the bacteria harder to fight. So if a fever is making you uncomfortable, it is totally fine to take stuff like ibuprofen or acetaminophen or things like that. So the treatments are always about opposing the disease effects. And additionally, Western medicine is often very reductionist or materialist. What this means is that you are looking for the smallest possible thing that is causing this illness. So when somebody has a cold, well, we know what causes a cold, and unfortunately, you can't really medicate your way out of a virus. So oftentimes with the cold, even though we know that the smallest thing that is causing you your icky feeling, basically becoming a snot factory, is because of a little virus. So the idea is to localize the cause of illness. We're going to see it's as small as possible, and we're going to basically try to localize to the direct cause of the problem as small as it gets. So those are the three major hallmarks of Western medicine. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Western medicine. Now, if you are in my research methods class, or if you have had me for research methods, you might remember we're going to talk in a couple of weeks about Hippocrates. Hippocrates is basically credited as the founder of Western medicine. He was one of the first people to actually separate medicine from a spiritual practice. So at the time, prior to Hippocrates, there was this idea that illness had an underlying spiritual cause. And if you wanted to handle the illness, you would have to find the underlying spiritual causes. So he actually separated medicine from myth. In research methods, we talk about him because he has his famous Hippocratic Oath, which is a code of ethics for people practicing medicine. And I will mention, there were actually practicing physicians prior to Hippocrates. Hippocrates is the founder, but he's not the first. And I have to share this with you because when I found this in your textbook, I'm like, I don't know what they're going to think about this, but I feel like I have to share. And if it gives you a laugh, So much the better. So I am quoting from your textbook right now. So first of all, Mesopotamia, which is kind of located in the area what we now know of as the Middle East, they actually had a medical system with a diagnostic framework. And the sources of illness could include things like omens, divination, animal sacrifice, looking at livers and stuff like that. So using religious rites and using drugs to practice surgery. But I have to share with you what was practiced in Egypt. There was Eri, so the pharaohs had a line of physicians, and there was Eri, the keeper of the royal rectum. I'm not kidding. The keeper of the royal rectum. So basically, they would give things like enemas to the pharaohs. I'm not explaining what an enema is. Please look it up yourself, or I might die of embarrassment. Okay. So there were practicing physicians prior. Another thing that Hippocrates also came up with was the theory of 4 humors. So basically, your personalities are basically a function of these 4 different fluids that you have in your body. So these will include things like blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. And basically, these also had some health effects. So if you had a lot of black bile, you were supposed to be kind of melancholic, very sad. If you had a lot of blood, you would be pretty cheerful. The term that they used was sanguine or sanguine. But there was Hippocrates' belief that having too much of one of these humors or having too little of these humors could cause an illness. So for example, cancer could be due, and yes, folks, cancer's not new. Cancer has existed for a while, and even ancient physicians knew about cancer, but Hippocrates believed that cancer might have occurred because of there being too much black bile in a particular body part. Why won't you move? There. Now, there are some technological advances that did help forward Western medicine. So Galen, who was called the Emperor of Medicine, Leonardo da Vinci during the Renaissance, and Andreas Vesalius ultimately did these very detailed studies of human anatomy. So let me see, we can take a little bit of a look at this. All right, let me see if I need to be able to share that screen with Abby. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. All right, come on. Wait, stop sharing. Okay, we're going to share. We're going to share this, not that window, this window. Share. Okay, so in particular, I was able to find this about Andreas Vesalius. So Vesalius, Galen and da Vinci obviously kind of started the path. But what I found really interesting when I found this link, so Galen basically believed that professors would read Galen to their students, and basically a surgeon would dissect an executed criminal, yikes, the ethics behind that, to show the relevant parts of the body. The professor didn't actually...
Black now for Abby.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. I'm looking at it on my phone too. Let me stop sharing. It should have, oh, you know why? They don't want me to show anything that might be copyrighted. So you're just going to have to trust me on this one. Abby, I'm sorry. It's like when you try to take a screenshot of something that you're watching on YouTube, they won't let you because they don't want any copyright problems. So let me kind of share this with you really quick, even though Abby or anybody watching the stream really isn't going to be able to see it. So there was this idea that Galen was always correct. Galen was correct, and the professor just needed to read from Galen. The professor didn't need to look at the part of the body because Galen already did everything. And then Vesalius comes in, and he originally backed Galen, but he began dissecting corpses for himself to show his students the details of anatomy. As he grew more familiar with the body, Vesalius began to notice that here and there, Galen had made mistakes. The human breastbone, so the sternum, which is right here, is made up of 3 segments. Galen said 7. Galen claimed that the humerus, so your upper arm bone, was the longest in the body, save for your femur, your thigh bone. But the tibia and the fibula, so both of the bones of your shins, actually are longer than the humerus. So Vesalius actually went and looked at bodies and ended up showing that Galen was ultimately incorrect. Okay. So the next person to kind of mention is, oh, it's black again. Dang it. Okay. Live. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? Okay, stop sharing. All right. Oh, now it works. Okay. Now it works. It's fine. Oh, there's a delay on my end. So it doesn't want to do what it wants to do. Okay. I'm going to wait and see. Are you going to work? Are you going to work? Come on. Show the picture. Oh, I think I'm fading. I think I'm fading out. Why isn't it doing it? I shouldn't have shifted. That's a problem. All right. Oh, now it comes back. Okay. Well, I'm going to go up and it disappeared again. Oh my gosh. Y'all, this is why I don't do this all that often anymore. All right. Okay. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay.
Are there 3 random people watching?
No, one of them is me. So then there is another random person watching. Hi, person. Thank you for being here. I did make it public. That technically makes it available to anybody. Yeah, I don't know why it's not working anymore. I don't know why it's not working anymore.
I can put her on like a Snapchat FaceTime, and then she can see the lecture.
Okay. That'll work. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this live. Because we've done the best we can, but now it seems to not be working for me. I think I opened up the wrong window. All right, we're gonna go ahead and stop it here. Go away. Yes, I will no longer